Welcome back to KG Law. I'm Kelly Rigo Green, the owner and founder of KG Law, located here in Sterling Heights, Michigan. So we're discussing the 12 best interest factors, and we're going to cover the next couple ones right now. The next one is the permanency as a family unit of an existing or proposed custodial home or homes. So who's in the house with the children? What does their family look like now? Has mom remarried? Did dad have a fiance and she's got 4 kids now living at the house? Okay. So we look to that. And then we also look at, will the child live with siblings or have siblings? That matters. The court is not there. The court wants to encourage family. That's their goal. We want to encourage stable, loving homes for a child. And everybody's home can look differently, and that's fine. What we're looking at is stability in who's in the child's life. We don't want people coming in and out. That doesn't lead to a child feeling secure and having without problems. So those are some of the things that we look at. Okay, so the next one generally this can be a pretty big one, and that's the moral fitness of the parties involved. So has either parent had an extramarital affair that the child knew about? Now, that does not mean go tell your child that daddy that's his latest, that's his mistress or anything. Don't do that. But did that happen? Like, did dad step out and end up having an affair with somebody and the child knows? Okay. Has there been any physical or verbal abuse, alcohol and drug issue, or drug abuse? If there's poor driving records, and then if there's physical or sexual abuse of a child, criminal records, or any other negative behaviors by either parent. And I'm going to add in there, my courts will also look if there's a step parent that has had any of these issues. That will be counted against them. The biggest part of that is, have any of these behaviors affected the child? Again, the court wants to keep your children as safe as they can without being in the home with you. And then, have these behaviors had a significant influence on that parent's parenting skills? So how are you navigating it? The second you found out that Jim had this issue, your kid knew about the affair and knew about, Jim's driving record or whatever, did you get the kid in counseling? How did you eliminate that person from the child's life? How did you handle it? That's what the court wants to know. And then we also consider the mental and physical health of the parties involved. So does either party have a mental or physical health problem that is so significant that it impairs or affects the ability to care for the child? This one is tricky, and oftentimes I see my referees and my judges kind of struggling with this one because we don't want to stigmatize mental health issues, but at the same time, if those issues or we don't want to discount people with just different disabilities, but it's to the extent, does that affect the overall ability to care for for the child? So take for example, if one parent is, let's say, an alcoholic, but they're in recovery. So the recovery looks like that parent's still going to AA, that parent's still doing check-ins with a sponsor, that parent doing other things to keep their sobriety, and that sometimes the kid goes to childcare when that parent is at AA. My court's not going to look down at that parent then for being a recovering alcoholic. The difference is that I have a parent over here in another, and this has happened in my own practice. I have one where dad has been in sobriety for 8 years. Mom wants to keep throwing up when he was having drug and alcohol problems. And we're like, it's been 8 years. He's been clean and sober for 8 years. It's no longer a factor. And the judge agreed with us that at this point, it is no longer a factor. Um, that, they have taken the steps to make sure that the child and that the child doesn't suffer any long-term problems as a result of what may have happened 8 years ago. And it is for the child's benefit to go to childcare and play with their friends that they know while dad attends AA on his parenting time. The flip side is I have another set of parents over here who dad now is custodial parent. Mom has some mental health issues, and because they're not kept in check, she's not in treatment, she's not following doctor's orders and things like that, we have had to ask the court to limit her parenting time with the child because the child suffers neglect and things like that when mom is in chaos mode, as the child calls it, actually. And those are the child's words. And he describes them, mom's having a chaos day. Can I come back to your house, dad? And so now we've written into the parenting time order that if child wants to go back to custodial parent, even on mom's parenting time, he can make that phone call. And he is always to have access to a telephone. Just so that we can keep child safe. So that's a big one for my court. I get asked a lot of questions. Well, what happens if parent A smokes pot? Now that marijuana is legal in Michigan, and the answer is you have to look at it case by case basis. In general, my judges will tell you, do not, even if it's legal, we do not want you to smoke pot when the child is around or in your care. Because heaven forbid there be an emergency while a child is in your care and you're high on pot or you're drunk or whatever, and you can't get the child safely with you being sober and that to an emergency situation. Drive them to a doctor, drive them to whatever. We don't want that. So that's a big one here in Michigan right now. That's still, my judges, I see them struggling with that one because we don't want to demonize mental health and we don't want to stigmatize things, but we do have to. So that's why it's, how does it affect your actions as the adult in this situation? How does that affect the child? So there you have it. Stay tuned for the next discussion on these 12 best interest factors.